Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into Ben Horowitz's book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And this isn't your usual business advice thing. It's incredibly honest, sometimes pretty brutal, about what it's really like to build a company. Our mission here is basically to pull out those raw truths, the wisdom he gained the hard way. We want to give you a direct line to understanding what leadership truly takes when things just seem to be completely falling apart. We'll look at his background, which is quite something, the near-death moments his companies went through, and the really tough, often kind of counterintuitive lessons he picked up.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so valuable, I think. Most business books, they tell you how to do things right. Horowitz, though, he jumps straight into, okay, what do you do after you've messed up? Big time. It's this rare, very honest look at the psychological side, the practical battles that even really successful CEOs face. So yeah, if you're leading anyone or trying to build something or just tackling big goals, his insights into the struggle, as he calls it, are just incredibly relevant for you.
Okay, so let's unpack some of that early stuff, the experiences that really shaped him. He grew up in Berkeley, which he called the People's Republic of Berkeley, communist grandparents, the whole deal. So a pretty unique viewpoint from the start. And he tells this one story from his childhood, the Joel Clark Jr. incident. Really stuck with him. He was dared to insult this other kid, an African-American kid, about his wagon. Ben was terrified, but instead of insulting him, he just walked over and asked, can I ride in your wagon?
Right.
And Joel said, sure. They ended up being lifelong friends.
Mm.
And Horowitz looked back on that, realized it taught him, being scared didn't mean I was gutless. And crucially, not to judge things by their surfaces.
Mm.
A really powerful early lesson about perception, about courage. It clearly shaped how he led later on.
Yeah, what's really striking there is how those kinds of early formative moments can just resonate through a leader's whole career. That lesson, look deeper, act even when you're scared, challenge the obvious reaction, that fed directly into how he handled those super ambiguous high-stakes situations in business later.
Yeah.
You can really see the seeds there of his empathy and his ability to find unconventional solutions.
That conviction, forged so early. It's impressive.
Yeah.
And it seems like these lessons just kept coming. Another big one was his high school football coach, Chico Mendoza. Apparently, this coach gave this intense, profanity-filled speech about absolute commitment. Like, turn your shit in if you weren't totally dedicated.
Wow. Okay.
Horowitz called that his first lesson in leadership. He really embraced it, even though his mom was apparently horrified. And that, plus being in these really different social groups, football players 1 minute, calculus nerds the next, taught him how having diverse perspectives totally changes how you see everything.
That does make you wonder, though, doesn't it? How do you square that kind of intense, almost brutal clarity from Mendoza with encouraging different viewpoints? I guess Mendoza's style, unconventional for sure, but it drove home this non-negotiable standard of commitment, which, let's face it, is absolutely vital in a startup when the pressure's on. Horowitz learned that sometimes you just need that directness, even if it's jarring, to cut through the noise and get everyone aligned.
Exactly. And just before we jump into the professional roller coaster, there are a couple more personal stories that really show his character developing. Like his blind date with Felicia. He and a buddy cooked this whole meal, and then she calls saying she's too tired.
Oh, no.
Right. But Ben, he just basically laid it out, blunt but kind of empathetic. Like, look, it's too late now, you got to come. And she did. 90 minutes later. And, well, she became his wife. It shows that directness, that persuasiveness, even personally. Then there's this really profound moment triggered by his dad's joke, the flowers versus divorce thing. Those one things were super stressful at his company, Net Labs. And on top of that, his daughter Mariah had just been diagnosed with autism.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. And his dad just says, do you know what's cheap? Flowers. But do you know what's expensive? Divorce. It was this huge wake-up call for Ben. Made him realize, like he said, by doing everything, I would fail at the most important thing, his family. He had to learn to prioritize, really prioritize.
Yeah. Looking at the big picture then, these stories, they really map out his growth, don't they? Developing courage, empathy, and that really difficult skill of making hard choices, not just business choices, but life choices. These are all completely essential for getting through the struggle he writes so much about. You see the leader emerging, learning to deal with the messy human side of it all.
And with that background, those foundations, that his professional struggle at LoudCloud and then later Opsware really makes sense. So he co-founds LoudCloud, huge hopes, right? And bam, the dot-com crash hits.
It's terrible timing.
Awful. The NASDAQ drops like 80%.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to raise money, and investors are basically telling him he's smoking crack.
Mm-hmm.
The big lesson he took from that nightmare: look for a market of one. When you're fundraising in that climate, you just need one. Yes.
Right. Just one.
And what he learned, really learned, was that even the hottest companies can face these existential threats. It just hardened his belief that there's always an answer, somewhere, even when everything looks completely hopeless.
And that period was just, I mean, the scale of that crash was almost impossible to foresee, right? Yet leaders like Horowitz, they still had to somehow navigate through it. It makes you ask, how do you keep believing? How do you keep your team believing when the entire outside world is basically screaming disaster? His story shows it often comes down to just sheer will, maybe an almost irrational belief that there is a way out, even if you can't see it yet.
Oh, his conviction got seriously tested. Loud stock, it cratered, down to 35 cents a share. NASDAQ used threatening to delist him. He had to hold this absolutely devastating all-hands meeting, told everyone they were doing a reverse stock split, basically merging shares to boost the price, which meant, employees seeing their theoretical stock wealth just slashed, cut in half, basically.
Ooh, painful.
She even mentions his mother-in-law asking him, point blank, why does everybody hate Ben so much? Can you imagine hearing that?
God, no.
Then came the IPO roadshow. From hell. The market was crashing every single day while they were out trying to sell the company. And during this, his daughter gets sick. His father-in-law actually hides it from him initially, just says, you just take care of what you need to do.
Wow, the pressure.
Immense.
Yeah.
And his wife, Felicia, total rock, tells him, get the IPO done. There is no tomorrow for you in the company. So they price it. The least celebratory IPO in history, he called it. $6 a share. And they still felt like, in his words, we're fed. That's when he coined the term WFIO moment. We're fed, it's over.
That feeling the CEO often gets, totally isolated.
Yeah, that whole period just perfectly captures the struggle that he defines in the book, right?
Yeah.
Those moments of just intense self-doubt, being totally alone with the weight of it all. And it really highlights the incredible personal sacrifice involved and how crucial that support system, family, mentors was. It let him push on when, honestly, logic probably said, just stop. It's a real testament to human endurance in these fights.
But they did pull out of it. Through this incredible pivot, he realized LoudCloud's original cloud business just wasn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So kind of secretly, they started developing this other thing, Opsware. Then came the crunch time with their biggest customer, EDS. 90% of their revenue.
90%. Yeah. And the deal was about to be canceled. The client environment was insane and chaotic. Product issues. Horowitz called it 60 days to live.
Yeah.
He put his top guys on it. Jason Rosenthal, the brilliant manager, and Anthony Wright, this street-smart guy, great with people. And Anthony figures it out. He discovers the key exec at EDS, this guy Frank Johnson. What he really wanted, secretly, was this specific, kind of obscure software called Tangram.
Interesting.
So Horowitz, going totally against his team's advice, makes this incredibly gutsy move. He acquires the company that makes Tangram small, old place for $10 million.
Just for that one piece of software.
Just to get Frank Johnson the product he wanted. It wasn't the obvious tech fix. It was about understanding the person. And it worked. It saved the EDS contract and ultimately saved Opsware.
That's such a great example. It really shows the importance of finding that exciting value, as you said, beyond just the technical stuff. It takes real courage to make those non-obvious, deeply customer-focused calls, especially when they carry that much risk. And it just underlines the huge strategic value in understanding what actually motivates people, not just what the specs say. Solving the real problem, yeah, even if the solution looks completely sideways to everyone else.
Right. So, okay, building on all that experience, what were the big leadership lessons Horowitz took away? A major one. CEOs have got to tell it like it is. He learned the hard way that this whole positivity delusion, thinking you always have to spin things positively, it's actually harmful. Instead, sharing the problems, being open about them, it actually empowers the employees to help fix them. He said, if I insisted on keeping the setbacks myself, there was no way to jumpstart that process.
Yeah, and it's not about, scaring people, right? It's about being transparent. It's about respecting people's intelligence enough to tell them the truth. That builds trust. The tricky part then becomes, okay, how do you balance that kind of radical honesty with keeping morale up when things are genuinely tough? I think his point is you frame it as a challenge the team can overcome together, not some secret burden only the CEO knows about.
He also gives some incredibly direct advice on those really hard people decisions. Layoffs, for instance. He mentions the VC Doug Leone being amazed they survived 3 rounds of layoffs. Horowitz argues the right way isn't about making it easy on yourself as the CEO. It's about admitting it's a company failure, not blaming the individuals. Managers need to be prepped. And crucially, the CEO addresses the whole company before anyone is let go. To give context, reassure those staying.
That takes guts. Addressing everyone beforehand.
Totally. And for firing an executive, he often says, it's probably the CEO's fault anyway. Maybe you defined the job badly or hired for the wrong reasons. But the key advice is, you cannot let him keep his job, but you absolutely can let him keep his respect. Let the executive have some say in how it's communicated, and never trash them on the way out, because their best people will just think, okay, I'm next. This all ties into his point about the lies that losers tell, the self-deceptions like, oh, she left, but we were going to fire her anyway, or blaming competitors. Those lies just stop you from actually fixing the real problems.
Yeah, that really gets at the sheer psychological weight of making those calls and how vital integrity is. Thinking about the long-term health of the culture over just, feeling comfortable in the moment or avoiding blame. And what really stands out is that need for honest self-assessment, even if it means admitting you, the CEO, screwed up. That's key to the organization actually getting healthier, facing the hard truths.
He also gets really practical about day-to-day management. He credits his old boss, Jim Barksdale, with the mantra, take care of the people, the products, and the profits in that order.
People first.
People first. Horowitz lived this. He tells a story about giving this speech, Why I Came to Work Today, basically threatening to fire a manager named Tim, because Tim wasn't doing his one-on-one meetings with his team. His point was, being a good company, actually caring about your people, that's what matters most when things inevitably go wrong.
Right.
He's also a huge advocate for training, why startups should train their people, echoing Andy Grove at Intel. He even wrote this famous internal doc at Netscape, Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager, which apparently completely changed how that team operated. Training, he says, it's super high leverage, it's crucial for managing performance, and it's essential for keeping people. Good people leave if they hate their boss or feel like they're not learning anything. And those one-on-ones, he insists they have to be the employees' meeting. The manager should be listening, like 90% of the time, asking tough questions like, what's not fun about working here? Or what should we be doing that we're not?
And you see how all that connects, right? Good management, caring, training, feedback, it builds that resilient culture. That's what makes it a place people want to work, even when the company's facing, front page failures, as he puts it, because they feel supported through the tough times.
Okay, shifting gears a bit to culture and strategy. Horowitz talks about programming your culture, sometimes using shock value. He means creating a culture that genuinely changes how people behave, not just, adding yoga classes or free snacks.
Right, more than just perks.
Exactly. He points to examples like Jeff Bezos using literal doors as desks in the early Amazon days, or his own firm, Andreessen Horowitz, having a $10 per minute fine for being late to a meeting with an entrepreneur, or Facebook's old move fast and break things.
Yeah, those send clear messages.
They're not just quirks, they signal what's really valued. Then there's the idea of lead bullets. This isn't about trying to do everything. It's about identifying these single, maybe unconventional engineering problem that if you solve it, you win the whole battle. Ruthless focus.
Laser focus, yeah.
Like Netscape beating Microsoft purely on performance back in the day, or Opsware focusing intensely to beat BladeLogic. You ignore the other good ideas to win the war. And finally, that classic line from Al Davis, the Raiders owner, advising coach Bill Parcells, who was complaining about injuries. Nobody cares, just coach your team.
Brutal, but true.
Totally. Your excuses, your reasons for failing, they don't matter. Your energy is way better spent just figuring out how to win anyway.
Taking all this together, they really highlight these sometimes pretty unconventional but clearly effective ways to create clarity, focus, and that relentless drive you need, especially when you're in a dogfight, intense competition, or a crisis. It's about being really intentional in shaping the environment to push towards the one thing that matters most.
And as companies evolve, leadership has to evolve too, right? Horowitz makes this really important distinction. Peacetime CEO versus wartime CEO. He kind of jokes he was 3 days peacetime CEO and 8 years wartime CEO.
Mostly wartime, though.
Mostly wartime, yeah. And he explains the difference. Peacetime is about maximizing opportunity, creativity, exploring. Wartime is survival mode, single mission, total focus, strict adherence. Think like Larry Page maybe in Google's growth phase versus Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple and had to save it.
Very different scenario.
Totally different. And knowing which mode your company is in or needs to be in is just critical. You can't lead a war using peacetime tactics or vice versa.
What's really fascinating there is the level of self-awareness that requires from a CEO, right? To actually adapt your style, admit the company's needs have changed. The industry sometimes gets caught up in personality. But Horowitz is saying it's much more about the strategic fit, matching the leadership to the situation. You got to evolve with the business.
And that learning process never stops. Horowitz is very clear. The most difficult CEO skill is realizing everybody learns to be a CEO. By being a CEO, you're going to face stuff you don't know. You will make mistakes. And ultimately, he says, it's your fault. The CEO owns everything, the good and the bad.
Total responsibility.
Yeah. He also tackles that fine line between fear and courage. Says there's basically no difference between a hero and a coward, only what you do. Great leaders aren't fearless. They feel the fear, but they fight those feelings off and do what they have to do. Courage, he argues, like character. It's something you can actually develop with practice.
That's empowering, actually.
It is. He talks about staying great as you scale, which means your loyalty has to be to your employees. You owe it to them to give them a world-class management team, even if that means making tough calls about executives who aren't scaling. And maybe my favorite creative solution, the Freaky Friday management technique.
Like the movie.
Exactly like the movie. He had these heads of sales engineering and customer support who were constantly at each other's throats. So he made them switch jobs for a while.
No way. Did it work?
Totally worked. They gained real empathy for the other side's challenges, figured out the root causes of the friction, and apparently their relationship completely transformed.
That's brilliant. Taking something from pop culture and applying it like that. Stepping back from all this, it really just underscores that leadership is this constant learning curve. It demands serious brain power, sure, but also just immense personal guts. And his journey, his techniques, even the Freaky Friday thing, they show how thinking outside the box, being creative about management can solve really tough, real-world problems and build stronger companies.
So as we wrap up our deep dives into Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things, it's just so clear this is way more than a business book. It's really an exploration of the human spirit facing down incredible pressure, his honesty just laying bare his own fears and failures and how he somehow got through. It sends a really powerful message. The struggle is where greatness comes from.
Yeah. And maybe one final thought to take away from his whole experience is this. A lot of people approach business like it's calculus. You know, precise formulas, predictable results. But the reality, especially when you're deep in the struggle, is often more about just believing, truly believing there is an answer, even when all the numbers, all the odds are stacked against you, and then just having the sheer courage to keep going until you find it.
That's a great way to put it. So for you listening, maybe here's something to think about. What hard thing are you wrestling with right now? Where does your gut feeling, your emotion, maybe clash with the cold logic? And perhaps what piece of Horowitz's story, his struggle, might just give you that extra bit of courage to find your answer? Even when, like Al Davis said, nobody cares about why it's so hard. Until next time, keep deep diving into the knowledge that matters most.
Contact Chris Lehnes of Versant Funding to learn if factoring can provide your business the cash you need to expand.